halfway between Larnaca and Limassol is this Neolithic site, Kirakitia. And judging by those steps and the steepness of the hill, they were pretty fit people. Round houses going right the way up the side of the hill, built out of either mudstones or rocks that they gathered, 5,800 years before Christ. It's a pretty old settlement, isn't it? Fascinating, all gathered together with a wall right there up the middle, the reason for which they have absolutely no idea. They buried the dead underneath the cottages in the centre, and they found lots of bones, particularly of children, because child mortality was very high, and they've also found that the men live longer than the women. I know, how times have changed. That job, it's not cleaning the outsides of the windows at Undersea World, is it? Good, because me and that sub-aqua stuff, we just don't get on. Do you know, I can imagine children playing around here, running and playing. You think I'm mad, don't you? These people were from the Aceramic period. Do you know what that means? Well, you do know. That's right, without pottery. Yep. I don't know what they used. I don't know everything, do I? I just know that they didn't use pottery. Stop trying to catch me out. Come on, let's move on. Colossi Crusaders Castle. Isn't it absolute? No, hold on a minute. It's this side of your Doric column. That is the castle. Isn't it marvellous? Now, this castle, or one like it, has been here for such a long time that it was even known to Richard the Lionheart, King of England. So about the time that Robin Hood and his merry men were dancing around in Sherwood Forest, and about 15 years or so before the Magna Carta, Richard was here, riding into town on one of his many crusades. Of course, what they used to do was go around the world and say, we'd like you to adopt our religion. And if you didn't, they smack you on the head. So he would spend years and years and years away from home. In fact, so much time away from home, he never spoke English. So he'd say to his wife, look, ta-ta, love, I'll be back in about 15 years. Oh, and keep your chastity belt on, won't you? Only he wouldn't say that, because I can't speak French. Anyway, there's some even older stuff around the other side. Like this old mill. Come and have a look at this well down here. At least, I assume it was the well. Water was brought in from a really ancient medieval aqueduct, and I assume that that is where it was stored. They had wheat, they had cotton, and they had vineyards, and they had sugar cane, and they were the knights of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem. Fleeing from the Holy Land, they came and settled here. That is the old sugarcane factory. And in fact, the local wine round here is still called Comandara, which means the command wine. A little further down the coast is the ancient city of Curion. Now, in the good old days, if you wanted to build a city, your architects went out and just chose wherever they wanted. And this was a great place to choose, because it's a huge lump of rock that's surrounded by cliffs with the most spectacular defence and views to the valley and sea below. The Greeks built it, the Egyptian pharaohs wanted it, the Romans took it and made it even bigger, and in 365, one great big, enormous earthquake flattened it. Yeah, you're all right, don't worry. It was a while ago. Anyway, they built it up again, but in the 7th century, they gave up on it altogether. And the reason was pirates. They got so sick of them coming from that sea there. And talking of sea, this job, it's nothing to do with dolphins, is it? No, but I'm getting warmer. Warm dolphins. The marvellous Paphos Fort. Isn't it brilliant? Oh, look at me in the spotlight. As always, this wonderful building was finished like this by the Turks, and there are lots of similarities between this and the fort in Larnaca. But its earlier history is even more interesting. I'll show you upstairs. As with Larnaca, the Venetians were here before the Turks. Before them, James II. Before him, James I. But, different to Larnaca, they believed that there was a really big medieval fort even before them, back maybe in the 11 or 1200s. That was the eastern tower. This is where the western tower would have stood, and there'd have been a curtain wall between the two, so quite a big fort. Now, Paphos itself. There are two parts to Paphos. There's Kato Paphos, which is the port area where we are now, and then there's Katima Paphos, which is the old town. And you can see that away in the distance towards the hills over there. And around the lighthouse, this whole area is one great big Roman ruin. You love it. You know you will. Oh, come on, come on, come on. Everything there is preserved, and they're excavating away like crazy, finding new things almost every day. Now, this job, it's not cleaning out all that seaweed from the harbour, is it? Good. Let's go and explore then. Absolutely stunning. A house full of mosaics. I say house. The house, of course, was once here. It's now got walkways all the way around it. But all of the floors are perfectly intact. This is the house of Dionysus, who was a wealthy Roman. Serious money to have floors like this. You almost think that they've sort of collected them and brought them here and laid them out again, but this is exactly as it was. And there's an interesting thing about this. All of this art, classical art, was done after Christianity came along. And that disproved some theories that classical art stopped with Christianity. It didn't at all. And this one is 600 years before the Romans were here. It's a Hellenistic mosaic. The Romans just put a pavement over it. Well, I've got my guidebook. Very interesting it is too. It tells me all about it. Welcome to the Tomb of the Kings, a necropolis, city of the dead. Come on, shake hands with Odysseus. Welcome to tomb number 3. Come on in. Now this is what you call being buried in style. Lots of catacombs going off with burial chambers all over the place. Not kings at all. The kings of Cyprus had long since disappeared. These were the rich, Hellenistic and Roman people. See this lump of rock here? This was a wall, and it was squatters who built walls in here and turned it into a little house. Through here, lots and lots of burial chambers. And oh, there's one. And this enormous one here. Remember that over the 600 years that these were used, this would have been chiselled out by hand. These are the chisel marks. Just clink, 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 making an enormous great room like this. In fact, part of this roof fell in. If you look straight up now, you'll see where the roof fell in. And there's a hole there, which in medieval times was used as a ventilation shaft for a kiln, which was down here. So they've been using them, not just for keeping the dead in, for quite some time. This particular tomb is 360 square meters. and it's 5 metres beneath the surface. They just go on and on, chamber after chamber. And it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. In fact, this whole area is littered with tombs, and archaeologists are going to be digging here probably longer than I'm going to be on Earth, and who knows what treasures they're going to find. And with wealth comes leisure time. And Roman leisure time was spent in this sort of place, the Roman equivalent of a leisure centre. In here, speeches, matters of the day, plays, they'd all be performed. I was in a play once, you know. My liege, your sword. Oh, okay, well maybe I'll get a bigger part one day. Listen, you mentioned before that I needed green fingers and that it was fishy and something to do with the sea. Are you sure that's what you meant? Okay, I still don't understand what this job's all about. Can you hear, if I stand just here, it gets very echoey, like that, because I am in the absolute centre of the amphitheatre. And the acoustics are perfect. Not bad for a couple of thousand years ago, eh? Mosaics lying under the bushes, pillars, columns, walls, everywhere you look, it's Roman. You couldn't put a spade in the ground here without finding something ancient in it. Roman pottery, just lying around. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. What? Oh, right, okay. It's time to earn our crust, is it? Well, go on then, reveal all.